All right. Well, we're back. Another episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast.
The Pursuit of Progress.
In 2024, we're going to have a professionally edited intro for you guys. So you won't have to put up with us doing our little voices anymore. But Ben is very talented with multiple intro voices. So we might have to do a poll in the next few weeks and let our listeners vote on which one they like the best.
Yeah, we should do that. I have my movie voice at a time when interest rates were falling from the sky.
Well, if you ever need a career change, I think you're going to be okay. Although I feel like in the next couple of years, any sort of game announcer, any of that stuff will probably be AI at that point. Who knows what's even going to exist?
It'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
Well, you guys, I've been really excited for this episode today. First and foremost, giving Ben a shout out and a gesture of appreciation for being vulnerable and talking through a very personal and I guess I'll use the word traumatic, but also I think life-changing might be another word to use, experience from back in 2021. Ben, let's just kind of dive right into this and just give our viewers and our listeners a little bit of a background on what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about something that is really, really important to me, and it's my mom, her legacy, and about her passing. She tragically passed away in 2021 while she was on vacation in Mexico. She was visiting the island of Cozumel, and her first day that she got down there, she stepped into the ocean with her fiance and his family. His son and his granddaughter were with them, and she was just getting in the ocean there to wade, and a wave ended up coming over her, and she inhaled some water, and she ended up drowning right there, just off the beach, probably 15 yards off the beach right there. And so it was something that was just incredibly, incredibly difficult, very unexpected. It was coming right out of COVID. It was the first trip she had gone on in, nearly 2 years. It was something that she was so excited about. And I'll just never forget the call that I got from Mexico, from Rick, and he had left me a voicemail saying that there was an accident. And right then I just, my heart sank, and I knew something really serious had happened. And yeah, so today I wanted to talk about her legacy, our relationship, some of the challenges that we had gone through, and then ultimately how the two of us together were able to overcome and persevere the problems and challenges of our past, and experience just some of the highest peaks after experiencing some of the lowest lows.
Yeah, I don't think I really got ever a chance to spend much time with your mom. I maybe met her once or twice in passing, but I wish I would have had the opportunity to get to know her a little bit better. Give me just a kind of a quick kind of breakdown on kind of your life with her growing up, your relationship in your younger years.
Let me go let these dogs in really quick. I can hear them yapping out there. So give me a few seconds. Yeah, that's a really great question. Growing up, I think my mom, before I get into my story, my mom grew up in a family. She was born in 1950, and although her parents were well-intended, there was not a lot of emotional support from her parents. They didn't express their love verbally, and so I remember her telling me stories that her parents, never told her that they loved her. They never really gave her hugs or physical affirmations and attention. And so I think that she had to learn a lot of that as a parent. Growing up in my family, there was a lot of dysfunction. My dad was an engineer for Amtrak, and he was gone on his Amtrak route, 3 or 4 days a week. So he was really not home half the week, every single week. And so what that meant is that all of the daily responsibilities landed on her. And I had two other brothers. And so there were three of us. And so even though she was married, it was still kind of like she was a single mom half the time. And so it was very, very difficult for her. And what's interesting is that you don't understand the challenges that a parent has until you become a parent. And now, I'm a single dad technically, single parent. I have my kids full time, and oh my gosh, man, there are days where I'm just like, this is so difficult. Like no one told me teenagers were going to be this freaking difficult. And so as a youngster, there were some really challenging times. My dad also died when I was 15 years old. And at that point, that really just kind of created a crisis in all of our lives. She didn't have the emotional support. She didn't have the relationship with us. She didn't have really the financial support to really provide for me and my two other brothers after he passed. And so I ended up going and living with another family in high school. My middle brother, Jordan, ended up going to prep school in New York. And then my youngest brother, Brian, went to military school in Virginia. And for a lot of years, there was a lot of resentment for that coming from me because I felt like she was getting rid of her family and she was getting rid of me. She was getting rid of my brothers. And it was something that I really was angry with her for not, wanting to step up. What I realized though is, and this was decades later, it's not that she didn't want to step up, it's that she literally just didn't have the ability to do that. She was at a place where she, and this must have been very difficult for her to acknowledge. At that time, she just didn't have the skills and the resources necessary to do that. So instead of, allowing us to fail, she gave us the opportunity to go somewhere else, to give us a more stable, positive, productive life. And I know that must have been very, very difficult for her. And so that's kind of where it started. And there was a lot of resentment for that. We had a lot of years where our valleys, our dark times were just very, very low. Going through college, even like I didn't talk to her a whole lot. She was not someone that I wanted in my life. I resented her. She was also not someone that I necessarily respected a whole lot. And she did have to take accountability for her part of the relationship, but what I had to do is I had to take accountability for my part of the relationship too. And that's one thing that I wasn't doing when I was younger, because there was, here's the reality. I was a handful as a teenager, and so were both of my brothers. We were rude, we were defiant, we were disrespectful, we were out of line. We did not make things easy on her. And it wasn't for decades, into my 30s, really, that I was able to acknowledge just how difficult we were. But, when I think of my mom, even though we had all of the dysfunction early on, and even though we went through some of these really deep, dark valleys, she never stopped showing up. And she decided that our relationship was very important, and it was always important to her, but she just didn't necessarily know how to express it. She didn't necessarily know how to show it. And what she did is, one thing that both you and I are very passionate on, she learned to develop herself. She became a better communicator. She learned how to express herself in a way that I was able to receive and really understand what she was trying to communicate. She constantly asked for forgiveness for her role over the phone, in person, in writing. She would write me letters. And she did that for a period of probably 10 or 15 years. She was very intentional. And she didn't just do it with her words, she did it with her actions and by the person that she became. And so even though we had some really difficult, challenging times, we were able to really successfully reconcile our relationship. And by the time that she passed in 2021, not only had we overcome all of the adversity in our relationship, but she was my best friend. She was my mentor. She was someone who I had immense respect for. She went from being this person that I couldn't stand to be around to where I would call her with anything, whether it was, kid related, relationship related, financial related, job related. I mean, she was just like this trusted advisor, this mentor. She was so supportive. She is someone who I had an incredibly deep love for and appreciation. And the reason that I felt that way is because we never gave up. We never quit on each other, both of us. And we went through those really challenging times and those really dark times. And because we went through those very, very difficult times together and we never gave up, that made our mountaintops, and the highs of our relationship so much sweeter because we had to go through those lows to get there and overcome the adversity. And so when she passed, number one, it was just so shocking because she was in great health, even though she was 71 years old. This is someone who she skied 26 times that ski season. Imagine that. Like how many 71-year-olds are skiing 2 or 3 times a week? Well, that's what she was doing. She was active in horse competition. She would compete with her horse and kind of travel all throughout the region. She would go scuba diving. She would go on 3 or 4 really big trips every year. And so this is someone who was extremely active, someone who was full of life. She was very involved in my kids' life. Also, in my mom's family, everyone lives for a very, very long time. My great grandfather lived over 100. My great grandmother was, my great grandmother, my grandma, they were all 90 plus. And so I was truly thinking, this person is 71 years young. I mean, she has a lot of life left. And when she passed, number one, it was just such a shock because it was the furthest thing on my mind. It's not even something that I considered. And just dealing with the shock of that and just the overwhelming grief of losing her so unexpectedly, that was just incredibly, like, very, very difficult. I went down to Mexico and I met my brother down there from Oklahoma, and just kind of retracing her last days, the beach that she went to, the hotel room that she was staying in, and her last moments. And it was very, very emotional for me. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to do that. I just spent 2 weeks down there and just really wanted to let my spirit soak in, to where she spent her final moments and her final moment. um, and so I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to do that, but it was very, very challenging and difficult and very emotional.
So was your one brother that was down there, Jordan? He was able to also kind of reestablish a relationship with her as far as your other two brothers. I mean, do they have the ability to also kind of make some amends over the last few years of her life, or was it really just you? I know that you're the only one that lived close to her, but
Yeah, that's a really great question. That was one thing that really helped our relationship is that I moved back from Phoenix, Arizona, back to Denver in 2015, and so that was just such a blessing because instead of seeing her, a couple of times a year, we literally got to see her 3 or 4 times a week. She was very involved with the kids. She would watch them. She would take them horseback riding. She would sign them up for ski lessons, and she was such an involved grandparent. And that's one of the things that was so rewarding for me to see because as much as she missed the mark with her parenting, she really nailed it as a grandparent. She had become a person that was just so capable of loving and expressing her love. She was so calm and consistent with her demeanor. Um, she was able to express herself without emotion. Even when she was frustrated, she practiced nonviolent emotional communication to where whenever she had something that she wanted to share, she would make sure that she was calm and she would express it in a way that was very steady, very even energy. And that's something that I am learning and I'm still trying to learn from her. But as a grandparent extremely involved, and it was just so rewarding, and that filled my heart with so much joy seeing that. um, Now my brother, she felt the same way about him and his kids, but they just didn't have the same opportunity just because of the
Hmm.
distance. And if you asked him though, he would say that their relationship was mended, and the last several years of her life, they were really able to make some very big strides. And she had actually gone to visit him in Oklahoma right before this Mexico trip. So, like the week before, she was out there visiting him. She came back to Colorado for like a day or two, and then she went to Mexico. And so I know that he's really thankful that he had that time with her in Oklahoma just prior to her passing. And he even made some of those same comments, just the person that she had become compared to the person that she was. I mean, she had literally transformed her life, and she had done it just through being intentional with her goals, and just progressing herself and never being satisfied. And it really was just remarkable to see and to be a part of, and the example that she set for me.
Yeah, I think if she was around today or looking down on us, I think she'd be very proud. That's for sure. So the whole just honoring somebody's legacy with personal excellence, personal progress. Let's just talk about that for a minute. So um, this dramatic, obviously, one of the biggest moments of your life, with obviously being such a intense thing that happened. Do you feel
Mhm.
like from that point forward, you had a mind shift, or at least kind of really this aha moment where other areas of your life were taken a little bit more seriously, um, kind of leveling up in other areas of your life, maybe whether or not it was at the time to honor her or just a reaction to your new kind of life from that point forward? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I refer to this as a spiritual awakening for me, her passing. And I think anyone that's lost a parent can probably relate to this. But when you lose a parent, knowing that they were responsible for giving you life and bringing you into this world. And in my case, at the time I was 39 years old, and not only had I lost both my parents, but all of my grandparents are gone. Both of my parents are gone. At 39 years old, I'm the oldest surviving member of my immediate family chain. Now I have like aunts and uncles, but as far as like parents, grandparents, like I'm the oldest member of my family, my family tree. And so that to me was that just gave me an entirely different perspective. And it was such a wake up call where I was like, you know what, I need to really get serious about who I'm becoming, about what path I'm going down, about what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I reflected back and I saw all of the growth that she had experienced over the course of the last 30 years, and how much more responsible and how much she had matured, and just this beautiful person that she had become, just so loving and caring. And I decided that I was going to honor her by becoming that person, by becoming someone who is going to be the very best that they can be, as a way to honor her, as a way to honor past generations, as a way for me to honor my children and my future generations. And that was also where I decided that I was going to leave alcohol. I got to spend some time with her remains and her body in the morgue down there, and I just told her that I'm gonna honor you with every breath and the way that I lead my life. I'm going to lead a life full of forgiveness, full of love, full of gratitude. I'm going to challenge myself to be better every day. And I'm going to question myself on things that I need to let go of. And I told her right there, I just put my hand on her chest and said that I was going to leave alcohol. I told her I'm never going to drink alcohol again. I will never. And I made that promise to her because she was not someone that drank. She never drank alcohol. She never touched it. And I know that even though I wasn't crazy with my alcohol, I know that that was something that was always an area of concern for her when she saw me doing that. And so I told her right then and there that I'm never going to have alcohol again, and I never have, and I'm not tempted to, and that's one of the ways that I'm honoring her.
That's a good example of having the reason behind doing something bigger than just, you have a legitimate reason for doing that, which I think is very admirable. And I'm sure you're going to be very successful at achieving that just because of that greater reasoning behind it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. When you do something like that, having the clarity and the intentionality and the purpose behind it, that's what matters. And I just, she was such a mentor to me. All the changes that she made, I just felt compelled to honor her in that way. And I wanted my life to be a testimony for her, and for the life that she led. And I want, I want others to be able to see, the son, the kind of son that she has, and be proud of that, and be, um, admire that, admire her qualities in me. Not that they're necessarily admiring me, but they're admiring the qualities that she instilled in me.
Mm-hmm. And that can even go a generation further into your kids and keep that moving forward.
That's exactly right. And that's what all of this is about. It's about giving back and paying it forward, and paying it forward to the next generation. And you learn a lot from when you are a teenager, when you're a kid, to become from when you become a parent. And I think that's one of my, I don't know if I would call it a regret, but it's one of those things where I literally just didn't have the capacity to understand my role and how I was, behaving as a teenager, and the stress and the, just the emotional flare ups that I was causing for
Mm-hmm.
her and the rest of my family through my behavior. And so that's what's so rewarding about becoming a parent, is that it does give you a completely different perspective. And that's what I was saying a minute ago with my kids. I was like, you know what? No one warned me, because they're both teenagers now. My daughter and they both became teenagers, here in the last like year and a half. My son about a year ago, and my daughter about 6 months ago. And I'm like, no one warned me about this. It was literally like the day that they became teenagers. Like, stop listening, don't cooperate, everything turns into an argument. Everything. Um, making poor decisions at times. And there are like nights where I just go into my closet upstairs, and I'm like, can I do this? I mean, can I do this? These kids are just driving me nuts. And then I just reflect back to her, and I was like, as difficult as these kids are, they're like a one on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to what I was, dude, because there's just no comparison. And so it just gives you a completely different perspective. And I got to remind myself to just keep going. And I think back to her and what she did. She just kept going every day, you know, just try to become a little bit better. What things that we talk about, just improve a little bit every day. And that's just what I tell myself. I just have to keep going. If I keep going, if I keep moving forward, I'm not looking to, leap forward miles at a time. I just need to take one step at a time and just keep moving forward.
That's awesome. Well, I guess the only last thing I would just kind of wrap things up with saying is just for any of our listeners or viewers that maybe have a sibling or a parent or anybody in their life that maybe they've grown distant from and maybe have some animosity with and just are in a position
Yeah.
like you and your mom
Yeah.
were prior to this reconciliation, just understanding that,
Yeah. That's right.
it's never too late. You guys did this when she was in her 50s, I believe, right? Or no, later than that. I'm sorry. In her 60s, probably. Um, and just understanding that, no matter how tough and just much tension there might be with that person, that, it's not too late. Reach out to that person,
Yeah. I'm so
whether it
glad
just
that
be
you
even a
said that,
text message or
because
something, just
I
maybe
feel
make
the
a
same way.
effort
And
this week
it's
towards
always so
just a
painful to
gesture
see,
towards that person
when
to
you
maybe take
have a
one
parent
small
and a
step in the
child
right
that aren't even
direction.
on speaking terms, and they're not even talking to each other, because you know that's killing both on the inside. Now they may not admit that, but what parent would not want to be on speaking terms with 2 or 3 years old? And you ask them, if I told you when you grow up 30 years from now, you're not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Well, that was a little bit of an emotional episode. I kind of had forgotten some of those little aspects of the story with your mom, but I appreciate you sharing that with everybody, and hopefully everybody that maybe has something similar that they can relate to on that. Maybe we're motivated at least a little bit to reach out or make some sort of effort to reconcile their relationships with their people in their lives. So, over the hill. Mm-hmm. Love it. Well, you guys, there we go. Another, I think, very valuable episode today. Again, Ben, appreciate it for taking the lead on this one and being vulnerable and talking through all of that with everybody. Um, any last words before we close it out? Yeah, you guys, if anybody wants to be a guest on the show as well, if you have something valuable that might be related to the pursuit of progress in one way or another, please reach out. We're getting our spring and summer lineup kind of put together right now and on the schedule. So we definitely are going to start having more guests in the next few months. So looking forward to sharing all that with you guys too. All right. Well, let's catch you guys next week on the pursuit. You guys have a great rest of your day.